Hi, I'm Marquise,
And this is your one and only favorite Taylor.
and welcome to the You Stuck With Me podcast.
You stuck with me.
In this podcast, you get to learn about our relationship, the ins and outs, and everything that happens in between.
Basically went through the sickness and the health and almost death do us part before we said I do.
And she's stuck with me, I'm stuck with her, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
And now y'all stuck with us.
Episode starts right now.
Cause here we are again. Cause you're wrong again. You trying to tell me that you love me, but your actions say another thing. Can't say I'm not hurt. Cause you know I got half a rib. But I'll be damned if I'm broken. What we had is now hers. You can let her know she can have it. Cause I can't stay here. If there's no love, can you hear me, baby? Cause I can't stay here. Cause I've had enough of no love. Enough of no love.
Why you worry about that other whore? Because another whore ain't worry about another whore.
Excuse me, this is my time.
Excuse me?
This is my time. This is my solo.
But we got to get to the show, though.
Enough of no love. Okay, I'm ready for the show.
Yo, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy, Marquise.
This is your one and only your favorite Taylor.
And welcome back to the You Stuck With Me podcast, y'all.
You stuck with me.
Babe, how do you feel about that nice rendition?
I'm in pain. That actually hurt.
What, no love?
I wish I had no pain.
Sorry, I can't help you there.
No more pain.
So, my wife came up with a beautiful topic that we're going to talk about, and I hadn't heard it before until last Sunday, and it's a very interesting topic, and we looked into it some more, and we definitely wanted to bring this to you guys if you've never heard it before yourself. So, Beautiful, you want to take it away?
Well, we kind of heard part of it last Sunday, but the part that I actually want to talk, well, it's a mixture. Some that we heard last Sunday, and you know I'm in therapy, y'all. Shout outs to my therapist. Shout outs to BetterHelp. Look, BetterHelp, look. You know, if you want to recruit us, you know, for like an endorsement, because, you know, I use your services. And y'all do a great job. Shameless plug. You know, come holler at us.
Cosign.
Yep. But before we get started, Bae, you want to tell them who this episode is sponsored from?
So this episode is sponsored by Mono, the #1 worldwide used microphone.
But BetterHelp, hint, hint. You know, if you want to sponsor episode 2, because you know y'all got some dope services. Y'all been helping a sister out. Hint, hint. But anyway, so first, have y'all ever felt tired? Well, first, hey, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Good. So you could chime in on this too if you want, because I feel like this can relate to everybody. So y'all ever felt like tired of doing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like tired, like you have nothing left to give.
Like you want to go to sleep tired?
Well, not just that's physically tired, but like mentally tired. Like
I'm mentally tired, yeah.
Like, you know, you just can't keep going on with the same BS all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so look, check this out. So, Sunday, we learned some terms, didn't we, Bae?
We did.
Do you remember those terms were?
So, one of the terms that we learned was...
It's okay, because I'm pulling up my notes now. So, that's why we have my handy phone right here.
One of them was compassion fatigue.
No. That's not what we learned.
Sorry, not compassion.
You're getting ahead of me, but that's what we learned. That's what I learned in therapy on Tuesday. No, what we learned on Sunday was disappointment fatigue.
Disappointment fatigue, I'm sorry.
And inadequacy anxiety.
So we're going to talk about those two things. Those were very interesting topics. For me personally, I had never heard of, but when it was explained, it made sense.
So disappointment fatigue is basically you getting tired of like having these expectations and they're not being met, for lack of better words. And that and you see that a lot in the dating pool. Now we can't speak too much on the dating pool because we've been out of it for umpteenth years. But from what we heard and seen from like our friends and family and even the ministry that we in church, when we talk about the dating pool, it's trash. And I think part of it is that being tired of like you having these expectations for a person and it just always falls flat.
You know what? The more I listen to you, and the more I rethink on that from Sunday, it doesn't. It can apply to dating, but it can
But
also
you can also reply
right.
to a relationship and a marriage, because that's what we're getting ready to talk about today.
Well, that I wasn't going there. Just you could also apply that to other scenarios like
I'm
work.
I'm just saying. But for the sake of this conversation, it ain't just single people. The singles, as I call y'all. Don't get offended, Steve.
You know you got in trouble for that.
I know. That's why I said don't get offended. But it applies to relationships and even a marriage. Yeah. There's disappointment fatigue and inadequate anxiety. So basically, we all know what anxiety is. We know the feeling of it, right? But you ever thought that one thing that triggers anxiety is feeling like that you're not enough?
Yeah.
That you can't meet the standards of somebody? That's another thing that we learned Sunday.
I'm going to get into that later. Let's get into this one first because that's how we're able to tie the two together.
So, well, let's introduce the third thing while we at it. But the thing that I'm really, really excited about to talk about today is compassion fatigue. And why I'm so excited about this is because, remember, I talked about how I took a mental health break months ago, right? And I just felt all these symptoms. So first of all, let me give you the definition of compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is emotion and a physical burden for those in stress, and it can create a second trauma response. So, for example, me being your caretaker when you was going through treatment, I'm putting all my energy in you, and I'm starting to feel like this heaviness, right? And I'm starting to feel like, okay, this is becoming too stressful, but it's causing me like a flight or flight response, and it's bringing me back to like other situations that cause trauma. Or this weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to y'all?
Yeah.
So that's what that means, compassion fatigue. And some of the symptoms, now check this out. Some of the symptoms are irritation and frustration, worthlessness or feeling like you have nothing left, isolating yourself, overwhelmed, physical ailments, having the us versus them mentality, substance abuse, exhaustion, sadness or apathy, like you don't feel like yourself, flashbacks or having PTSD, anxious for the wrong reasons like social anxiety, sudden tears for no reason, and also you just overall don't feel like yourself anymore.
So I'm glad you brought that up and gave the definition. So I want to dive into something that I think will help with this episode, and maybe just talking about it will give me some type of clarity. So last week, I decided to cut off somebody who was really special to me. And the reason why is because I wanted to keep my peace, and I decided to love them from afar because the relationship that I had with this person, it was very up and down. And this person said something to me that I took full offense to, and I was not going to tolerate or accept that from him or anybody else. So because of that, I decided to cut them off. Now, I haven't thought about this person or talked to this person in probably about now 3 weeks. And I'm completely fine with it. And, just trying to understand what I was feeling. Because at the time, I couldn't find a language for it either. But I knew I was tired of the frustration. I was tired of the gaslighting. I was tired of the smart comments. And I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I just wanted my peace. So, I don't know, maybe it's compassion fatigue, or maybe it's something else, or maybe I just finally reached my wit's end.
I say could be a form of compassion fatigue because I mean this is someone that you always pour into,
Hmm.
but I think the statement that was made it it puts you in a flashback because the statement that was made. I mean, we're not gonna repeat it, but it had something to do that something that you went through,
Hmm.
and I think that's what tipped you over. I mean, to me, it sounds like it's a form of it, and it's causing. I mean, that at some point, well, it brings the question: did it at some point bring you like a point where you're like, you know what, I have nothing else to give?
Exactly, because that's where I was really at.
Okay, so yeah, that's one of the things there. And at some point, did it feel like? I'm sorry, I'm not like on my phone because the notes are here. At some point, did it feel like, okay, I can only do so much that they got to start doing something for themselves?
Yeah, it did, and I had to ask myself this question. I'm glad that I did. The question I asked myself was, did it hurt to let them go? Yeah, it did, but my peace would hurt more if I didn't have it.
Mm. And that actually brings me to a couple sayings that I learned in this session. So one saying is, just because you can does not mean you should. It's okay to say no. So what that means is you have all the resources to help this person. You have all the means, all this to help them, but that doesn't mean that you should.
Hmm.
So in that case, for the case of the person that you cut off, you have the means to help them. But it's like, okay, it's at a point that you shouldn't because that doesn't necessarily mean you should because now it's a repeated cycle.
Yeah.
And another saying is for those times because you know it's like with people that are close to us,
Hmm.
like spouses, siblings, parents, anybody that's like real close to us in our immediate circle. It's hard for us to say no, and then when we do say no, you know, we might find out a way to talk ourselves out of it. So for that, one saying that we could say to ourselves is saying no to someone can be flipped to saying yes to yourself. So by you saying no, I won't help this person, you're saying yes that to yourself. In other words, you are saying yes to you have extra time that you can use for yourself.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
So did that kind of like clear up the whole thing?
Yeah, it did.
Okay. Yeah, y'all gonna have to see my feet today. But I mean they pretty though.
At
They
least,
lotioned.
at least they're done.
No, they ain't done. That's natural, but at least they lotion. But anyway, sorry, the ADHD. But yeah, so I hope that kind of cleared up what you've been feeling about this cutoff of this person.
Yeah, it does. And I say this much: do I miss them? Yes. Do I love them? Always. But I can't continue to go down the same path with them that I was going.
And that's what I was getting ready to say too. It doesn't necessarily say that you don't love them or you know you want any harm done to them,
Hmm.
but it's like you gotta create a boundary. That's what you're doing.
Hmm.
You're creating boundaries, and boundaries are hard if you never really create them before, right?
Right.
And it's more like to the other person, it's like, okay, I'm so used to having all this access to you. Now you cutting me off. So the boundary may feel okay to you, but for the person on the receiving end, it's like, what's happening?
They're not
It's
happy
a
about it.
lifestyle change.
Hmm.
So yeah. But it brings me to another question I came across here, because you know, all the self healing and everything like that. So in one of the groups I was watching, a question came up. It didn't get a chance to be addressed, and I said, well, let's talk about it on a podcast.
Okay.
So the question is, how do you navigate a season in marriage when one spouse feels emotionally exhausted because acts of service and consideration feel one-sided?
Ooh, that's a good question. Uh, well, first, I think a conversation needs to be held because there's no point in you having these feelings and not conveying it to your spouse. And because marriage is solely, not, I'm gonna not say solely, but a huge part of marriage is communication. You have to let your partner know how you're feeling and what you're thinking, because for all they know, you could be fine. You could look fine to them, and nothing comes across. They don't think about it. But when you say something, that gives you guys that time to have that good opportunity to speak your mind and speak your piece and speak how you're feeling. And so you're not walking around resentful. Like the next thing that's going to happen is going to piss you off. But you have that sense of understanding. I think that can make for a better situation in that particular season. And so now you guys are not walking around on pins and needles wondering what's about to happen next and who's going to snap first.
Now, see, I respect that answer, but in this case, I would need a little bit more detail, because the first thing I thought of was us.
Okay.
Because
for obvious reasons.
Because we've been in that season. We've been in and out of this season. Mm-hmm. And it's based on conversations that we've had. Mm-hmm. Now, it could be a situation where the spouse has told their spouse, like, hey, I've been noticing some traits here that you may not be aware that you're doing. So here it is. Like, I noticed that when something is about me, when I need some help or something like that from you, there's always like a barrier or a pause, like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. But when the role is reversed, I make sure that what you're asking me to do is done in a timely manner. And they could have had that conversation numerous of times, but how many times you have this conversation, and how many times you give grace until you like that spouse is ready to snap, crackle, and pop?
That's a good question.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, I see what you're saying. All I'm going to say is that we know that in marriage, it's an ongoing you're always communicating. It's ongoing. It never stops. And the only thing that I could say is that your significant other may not get it right the first time or even the second time, but as long as they're willing to put in the work to make sure that it's done, I say give them grace for that, because Rome wasn't built in a day.
Again, but that goes back to my question: what is the
identifiable?
No, what is considered a suitable amount of grace? Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, like, again, could have had this conversation 3, 4, 5 times, and then oh, it's like, okay, he just not getting it. I don't know how else to convey it. But here's another example. So now the spouse has told their spouse what's been going on. They at the point now, like, they're done trying to bring this up. They just figure, okay, this person is the way that they are. But now you got outside people who notice these things too. And what I mean by outside people is, like, it could be friends, it could be family, it could be like certain situations here and there. They noticing what you saw, but it's dicey depending on how your community is set up. And don't nobody want to comment on nobody marriage or relationship or anything like that. So it's like, it's giving that one spouse that validation, like, okay, what I'm seeing is actually happening. I'm not crazy. What am I supposed to do now? See, this is what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of factors here.
Yeah. Well, I think it wouldn't be someone else's place who's not in the relationship to say something. Or, you know what, depending on the relationship that they have with that one significant spouse, they could say something and then it clicks, because sometimes it may not be, the message may be the same, but it depends on the person who tells them. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But example, what you may receive from me, well, I may tell you, you may not receive it, but if somebody else tells you the same thing, then you get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That just happens sometimes. You see what I'm saying?
Well, that's what I'm saying too. So it's like I said, it depends on the relationship. Now, I'm not saying that, outside influences should be, influencing how you should move in your relationship or your marriage or whatever like that. But if it's like, say you had a sibling, they notice that your mood and stuff has changed. And they notice some things like, that they're down or, I don't know, personality traits change when they're around their partner. So they might pull their sibling to the side like, hey, I'm not trying to pry. I'm not trying to be all in your business, but I've noticed that you're not acting like yourself. Something is off.
Okay, I see.
Something is afoot, as I say. Something is afoot here. Like, what's going on? Like that type of deal.
Okay, so to answer your question, I think that would be a good time to say something, because obviously your siblings, or at least they should, want the best for you and your spouse. So if they see something that your spouse has already told you, then I think it's time that you really take a look in the mirror and say, hey, I need to change this. Because if it comes from my spouse, okay. But if it comes from my sibling that's saying this literally the same thing that my spouse is saying, I need to check myself and like, okay, what was it that I'm missing? Or what is it that I am not doing to fulfill my spouse's request? And what's making me feel that way? If I do feel that way. You see what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So I would have to take one, accountability on my part and check myself. Two, I will apologize for you for failing you as my spouse and my partner. And three, I would have to make a grand effort to say, okay, she's been saying this, so not let me do it when she asks, but do it when she doesn't expect it. At least it lets my partner know that, hey, now I'm paying attention, I'm listening. You have my undivided attention. I know what you want before you even ask it.
Now you're talking about initiative. Now that's all fine and dandy, but the key element here with that is, and I think what everybody needs to understand, and it's not just in marriage, it's just not in just like regular relationships, in life. One of the main things that leaves an impression on people is consistency. Mm-hmm. Like, you can tell me, like, okay, you can show me for about a week, and then we go back to the same bullshit. Mm-hmm. In after 2 weeks, and here we go in this repeated cycle. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And then that's where the resentment grows. Mm-hmm. But I use that example because the question here, it could come from a place of compassion fatigue. Like, this person has been taking care of their spouse for like how long? They moved the ends of the earth to the moon and back for them, but they're tired. They feel like they have nothing else to give, and maybe they're not asking for like monetary stuff, like just the words of affirmation. Like, the words of affirmation are nice, but the action is not there.
So now we get into acts of service.
Right. And one thing I learned in therapy too is I learned that, as a person who gives 100% in everything, right, which is a good and a bad thing, but that's another topic for another episode. That your 100%. Okay, no, how am I trying to say this? That I can't always expect somebody to give 100% like I do. Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody's 100% is not the same. I could give 100% and do above and beyond and everything like that. And you might just do like 50%, but to you, that's doing 100%. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. So, with that being said, what do you do when you finally come to that realization? Do you talk to that person, or do you say, okay, I can't, I can't expect me from them? Does that make sense?
Well, you can do both. Me, I would again. Not everybody, and this is not to say, and not everybody's gonna go through therapy and stuff like that. Some people may feel like therapy is not for them, or whatever the case may be, and not everybody's gonna come from a healed place.
Agreed.
Right? So, I mean, if it were me, I would do both. I'm like, okay, Taylor, Marquise he might not know a lot of stuff. He might do something. It might look kind of half assed. I'm trying to cut back on the cards. It might look half assed,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe he's never done it before. Or maybe, he wasn't really paying attention. Maybe he moving quick, whatever the case may be. Okay, but you see a pattern here. So now, okay, let's have a conversation with him. But I know how you respond to things, so it's going to be easy for me to have a conversation with you in aspects of that. But also, too, again, like how we talked about before, it may take somebody else or you or another example of something for you to see it to understand. Because we've had that conversation. We've had conversations and I'll say disagreements about that. Because I'm like, well, I told you that, and then you wait till so-and-so tell you, like, that's dumb. But I had to, check myself, and I had to learn, like, okay, sometimes he might need somebody else to tell him.
And, going back to that point, I don't think there's nothing wrong with that, because the way you receive things from one person, or a speech or whatever from one person, you're going to take it differently if it comes from somebody else. No matter if the words are the same, if the tones are the same or not, your response is going to be different from different people.
But then also too, and I'm like, okay, maybe you're not taking it from me because I'm your wife. It could be like another, oh, she just nagging, or she just saying something. Mm-hmm. So you just take it lightly, as opposed to like if it was one of your homeboys or something like that. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, and that's not, I know that's not just me. That that happens to everybody.
I mean, it's just for the sake of conversation, because I'm using us as an example. Mm-hmm. But even in friendships, baby, I have a friend right now. I'm not gonna mention any names. They probably gonna hear this, and they probably gonna feel like it's about them. And they probably gonna give me a phone call later and ask me, is it them? And we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I have a friend right now. They mean well, they mean everything. But it seems like every time we talk, or the few times that I call them, tell them I have an issue and stuff like that, they always revert it back to them. And I listen.
So let me ask you this. I'm trying to make sure I put the sentence correctly.
Because you know who I'm talking about, and you try to make sure.
No, that's not where I was.
Oh, you don't know who I'm talking about?
No, I know who you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm trying to make sure I put my sentence together well, so that the question makes sense. So when a person means well, does that or can that make up for the lack of emotional intelligence?
What do you mean?
So if a person means well, but they're not giving you what you need, can that make up for it, or does that help balance it out?
Again, well, that goes back to grace. Now, this person I've known for years, and it's like what we talked about. We've had conversations too. Like, you got to know your friends, you got to know your family, and you got to know your spouse or your significant other, mm-hmm. right? Some people compartmentalize. Did I say that right?
Compartmentalize.
Thank you. That's why y'all here. Y'all know I got post-surgery brain. That's how people.
I'm sorry, I want to expect you to say that.
People do that in their minds with like how they categorize their friends and loved ones and stuff like that. So after a while, you be like, okay, the grace here, like, no, something gotta click. Something.
I want to say. I don't know if can I be heard. Well, just kind of repeat, just reiterate what I said. I don't think I can be heard, but
Hi, Steve.
hey, y'all. Basically, I think that the level of grace you give should depend on the intent behind the person's actions, not necessarily the action, but the intent.
I like that.
Yeah.
So repeat that a little bit.
Go ahead, repeat that.
So he basically said that the amount of grace should matter on the intent behind the action. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to think.
Yeah, that's a good way to think
That's
about
a great way to think about it. So Steve, so that brings me to this brings me to this question here, and we could just reiterate. We could just. Oh, we ain't need you to come from your comfy chair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can go ahead. I'll just be.
So this brings me to my next question. So let's just say you've been. Let's just use a family member. Say you got a cousin, right? You know, we all got that one cousin that don't do right.
Yeah.
Right? You know, they call, they might start off like, hey, how you doing? But then they go right into, you know, about their problems. You could have the most effed up day ever. You could have like all this stuff going on. And you be like, okay, you know, I'm gonna let it pass because, you know, that's my cousin and stuff like that.
Maybe like once or twice.
Huh?
Maybe like once or twice when it first starts.
Or
happening.
a few times, you know, whatever. However you times you get him grace. When do you feel like okay? When do you feel like okay? You know, I just can't. A conversation need to be had. Like, hey, you know, or do you even decide to have a conversation? How do you handle that? Some people might not even want to have a conversation with that person. They just be like, look at their phone, like, oh, here go my cousin calling. I can't. I don't want to deal with it today.
So is it possible that it's not only the intent behind the action, but the person and the intent?
So, I actually already got an answer. So my answer would basically be like, at that point, it depends on your intent behind the conversation. So if my intent of the conversation was to get healing or to get closure or to get understanding through the conversation and not just to listen to somebody complain about their own life, then there would be a little bit of a pullback on the grace. But as far as the intent, what did you say, Marquise? You said
the person and the
person behind the intent basically. I think that the person behind the intent somewhat matters, but sometimes people aren't at the same stage. Kind of like what you guys said earlier, where Taylor was like, you know, my 100% isn't their 100%. What looks like 100% to them could be my 50%. And I think that applies in the same way, where it's like, you know, it's kind of like, I'm going to make it biblical, where it's like they say God knows the intents of the heart. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, if we're supposed to reflect God, then we should be able to sort of discern, like, okay, well, the intent behind this and their heart behind this was meant to be positive. It's just they don't have the capacity to do it in a positive way. If they don't have the means, then you can't really necessarily blame them for not having the means to do it, as long as their intention wasn't to cause any sort of harm or friction. And then to what you said, Taylor, could you repeat what you just asked me?
Dang, y'all know I got a memory of fruit fly. So I guess my question was like, you know this, but you know, when do you? So you kind of answered a little bit when you talked about discernment. So my question is like, how do you decipher like, okay, do I want to have a conversation with them, or you just try to, for lack of a word, deflect, or you know. That aspect.
So my answer to that, what I think is that, this is what I said earlier. It's the intent behind you. So it's like their intent is one thing. If you're going to engage, their intent matters. But what matters most to you is your intent. Like, okay, what am I looking to get out of this person, and how am I going to get that? Can I get that? If it's a no, then it's a no, and you don't talk to them.
That's a good way to put it.
That is a good way to put it.
And thank you for coming to Steve's TED Talk.
Man. And then the first thing I thought, since we talk about the biblical aspect of it, Steve, it reminds me of the term heart posture. Yeah, heart posture. So that was good.
was definitely good.
That was good. See, Steve, I knew you bring some insight.
I'm gonna set a mic up for me next time.
Okay, but see, I knew you would have some good insight on this.
Yeah.
But
Therapy.
yeah, therapy. Yeah. But yeah, so to tie it all in, what the whole purpose of the episode was, I just wanted to bring a new concept that I thought was really cool. So inadequacy, anxiety, disappointment, anxiety, and compassion. No, disappointment fatigue. I'm sorry, and compassion fatigue.
Inadequacy.
Anxiety. I said that.
Okay.
I thought that was some really, really cool stuff.
Yeah,
Like
they were very profound.
Yeah. So I think that mental health leave that I took, I think I was suffering from that. I think, of course, set aside the medical stuff. I think another part of it was I was suffering from compassion fatigue because I'm pouring into everybody else to the point where I feel like I didn't have nothing to give.
And, you know, we discussed that on the podcast before, where you pour into everybody else so much that you don't have anything left for yourself, and you can't do that. You just can't do that.
Yeah. That's some good stuff, man. Steve, what do you think? You learned something today?
Yeah, definitely. I've never heard any of those phrases. So even with all my therapy, I've never heard of compassion fatigue or
Inadequacy, and anxiety, and disappointment fatigue.
Yeah, I haven't heard those. I mean, they make sense, and I've experienced them, but I've never heard them.
I think we all have had that happen to us at one point or another, whether it's relationships, whether it's trying to get a job, whether it's trying to do something else. So,
and I think we all experienced it. We just didn't know it was a name for it.
Yeah. Or had the language for it.
Yeah. But the I wanted to touch on inadequacy is anxiety real quick because I thought that was interesting too. So mainly in dating, I noticed those two things that you're going to notice. You're going to notice disappointment fatigue and inadequacy anxiety, right? And you was getting ready to say something?
Well, you know, I think that you will feel the former more than the latter. Because when you go out and you're dating, you're trying to find your person, you're going to run into some people that you're going to be like, okay, we do not match, we do not connect, nothing like that. And I think that's the disappointment fatigue. Where also, you know, the anxiety,
inadequacy, adequate anxiety, inadequacy anxiety.
Thank you. And you know, that's something that sometimes comes with it, because even if you find somebody that you connect with, you still don't know if you're adequately enough, or you have the adequacy enough to meet this person wherever they're at, if you feel like you haven't got, you know, X, Y, or Z together.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. They kind of go hand to hand. So, example, and of course, I feel like you see this in marriages too. So, example, let's just say I'm a CEO. I have all this type of money. I'm used to financing my own stuff and everything like that. I meet you. You just working a regular 9 to 5.
You know what that sounds like to me?
What?
Think like a man, Taraji P. Henson and Michael Ealy's relationship.
Wasn't he a cook?
Yeah, he was cooking. She was a CEO.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And, you know, we dating, we chilling, you know, we getting to know each other and everything like that. Then, you know, we start to try to embark on a relationship, but all of a sudden you start to ghost me. Or you start to pull back and everything.
Because I feel inadequate.
Because you feel like, okay, she making all this money, you know, what can I add to the table, right?
And, you know, that's not just with men, that's with women too, because I've heard and seen some women say, well, he's got all his stuff together. What does he need me for?
Well, I'm just saying that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden you pull back, you ghost me. Now here's and I'm at the point now I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this dating stuff. It's piss in it and all this. And you know,
right on the head,
you know, maybe I need to focus on myself or whatever like that. That's an example of disappointment fatigue and the pulling back and ghosting without saying nothing. Or sometimes they may say something. That's a form of inadequacy anxiety. Now that's in dating. Now in marriage, I'll give you an example. Because you know we gotta talk about both sides of the spectrum, then we can end it here. Again, let's just use us. For example, I make more money. Let's just say I make more money than Marquise, right? Mm-hmm. I make more money than you. We first got together, we didn't have nothing. But as we start, you know, progressing and everything like that, we get married, things take off. I make more money than you, and now you start to pull back. But it's a little different because Marquise can't really pull back because we're married. Mm-hmm. So he starts, you know, just go out with the guys or do whatever. He starts to isolate himself. Now we get to a point where we are stonewalling. That's a new word. See, I'm just full of new words today.
You just gave me something that I thought about. I'm gonna let you finish your point.
Yeah, now we stonewalling. We're like two ships in the night, whatever. Then there's resentment building because it's like, okay, who the hell she thinks she is? You know, she must think she the man in the relationship, all that. Now all of a sudden we talking divorce. and now I'm feeling like, okay, I went through marriage. It didn't work. I don't want to go through this again, so I'm good. Disappointment fatigue. I'm thinking of divorce and my past relationships where this has happened. That's disappointment fatigue. And now the example of inadequacy anxiety, because now he feel like he didn't have nothing to bring to the table. Or even to flip that another way he could have did it was he overcompensating.
Ooh.
He's overcompensating. We go out, he pulling out his card, you know, I'm like, babe, it's fine, I got it. No, he pulling out his card knowing good well he ain't got enough money to pay for this meal, but he want to do it anyway. Or we might be in front of our friends. And, you know, the friends, you know, they're high caliber and stuff, too. He don't want to feel like he can't provide. So, you know, he just do things and say things to overcompensate. That's another form of inadequacy anxiety, too.
So, you know, everything you just said, it made me think of, like, trying to tie it together. So, inadequacy anxiety plus disappointment fatigue equals... I had it in my head. I was trying to say it correctly, but inadequacy anxiety plus what was the third one?
Compassion fatigue.
Compassion fatigue.
Or disappointment fatigue.
No, compassion fatigue equals disappointment fatigue.
Wait, you gotta say that again.
So inadequacy anxiety versus compassion fatigue equals
disappointment
fatigue. Think about it. It's like a cycle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not bad.
I'm just trying to get the words out because there's so many, like...
I'm just using so many big words today, y'all. Man.
But yeah.
I need to go get my doctorate right now. I mean, there's a crackhead out here being the head of the... DHS. Why not? I said what I said. He is a crackhead. He said it himself. Sorry, not sorry.
Speed truth to power. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this episode because it definitely taught me a lot in terms of language and the way... Verbiage and the way that things can be put together. And when you sit there and think about it, it gives you a different perspective on dating, relationships, work. I mean, everything that we said can be tied to just about anything that you go through in life.
And I think I'm gonna have everybody out here talking about some compassion fatigue. Like I can't help you too much. I got fatigue. You
You know what? I kid you not. If I see that pop up on social media and it's something that
we getting that copyright on a T-shirt. No, we can't do that because I actually did get that from a therapist. Again, shout outs to BetterHelp. And
also...
go ahead and give us that endorsement.
And we also have to shout out Defining Decades because
Yeah.
with Salem and Progressive because we definitely listen. We heard that there too.
Yep. Yep. Shout outs to Salem. Hey, Salem.
What's up, Progressive?
Yeah. So, yeah.
So on that note, beautiful, you want to tell the people where they can find us?
You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on TikTok. And you also could stream our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, because we're part of iHeart family now, or anywhere you stream your favorite shows. Bae, you want to drop the handles?
Yes, so the handles for Apple Podcasts, well, we don't need a handle for Apple Podcasts, but for the handles for our social media, so you can find us at YouStuckWithMe_podcast on the app formerly known as Twitter, TikTok, and IG. That is USTUCKWITME_podcast. And then you can find me personally on IG, TikTok, and the app formerly known as Twitter, and mine_1, that is M1NE_1. And you can find my beautiful wife at...
You can find me on Instagram and the app formerly known as Twitter under Queen Points. That is PO1NTZ. Again, that is Queen Points, PO1NTZ. And if you want some more behind the scenes stuff where I keep poking Marquise in the head every time I sing like that, and then, act like I slap him like that, and also how me and Steve had these meaningful conversations and everything like that, you can follow me on TikTok under Queen Points 22. And also, because we addressed the question today, we did do that. If y'all want to send us some questions and you want us to answer on the air, Bae, you want to drop the email?
Yes, so you can email us at YouStuckWithMe_podcast. That is YouStuckWithMe_podcast as USTUCIK. Ooh, I messed that up.
Ooh.
USTUCKWITME@gmail.com.
Okay. And Steve, where can we find you at?
You can find me at Steve is Black on Instagram and Roots Recordings.
That is Steve is Black on Instagram and Roots Recordings. You know what? Your handle is so funny. Every time you see...
No, Steve is black, y'all.
He is black. If y'all never seen him, he is black.
But once again, this is your boy Marquise.
And this is your one and only, your favorite Taylor. And this is Steve. Next time we're going to get him a mic. Yep. He's here.
All right, y'all. We out.
Hey, you stuck with us.
Make sure y'all come back.
Come back.
And make sure y'all hit that, make sure y'all rate, review, and subscribe.
Like, rate, review, subscribe, and share so we can continue to make more content to your liking. Because we need it. Hey, and BetterHelp. I'm looking at this camera here, right? Mm-hmm. BetterHelp, look. Hook a sister up with endorsement, okay? Because I use your services. You supposed to add to that.
She does.
Later, y'all.
Peace out.
Peace.